All right. Good afternoon. David Johnson here from Grow the Dream. I'm delighted that you're here for Strategy Stream. We are kicking off another one of these sessions. And if you're here for the very first time, I want to just say a special welcome to you. Welcome to everyone, but a special welcome to you if it's your first time. And we are working our way through a strategic process that is something that my team and I have used. And actually, before I had a team, I was using this process in an earlier form, going back more than 20 years ago, to help clarify strategy and to help businesses, business leaders, business owners, maybe organizational leaders, if you're involved in the nonprofit world, people just like you, to build solid communications and marketing strategy that would grow revenue, that would claim market share, that would do all of those things that you want to do on the sort of revenue side of an organization, of a business, to facilitate sales. And so I'm not a sales trainer. We're not going to talk sales particularly, but we are talking about growing revenue and being strategic. So again, just to kind of tee up today's content, we are especially working through this content right now because in 2020, everything's changed. And so it really doesn't matter if your business is doing well, if your organization is doing well, if you are having a real struggle this year, it really doesn't matter how well or poorly you feel like you're doing this year business-wise. What is important is that the environment in which we all operate has changed dramatically. And so as a result of that, any strategy that you may have had coming into 2020 or coming into the pandemic, you've probably thrown out the window in some way or another right now, or you're thinking you should be throwing it out the window. So that's the real heartbeat behind this process that we're going through once a week on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, is to go through this strategic process together, expose you to some real strategic thinking, maybe for the first time, but even if it's not for the first time, to update your current thinking about strategy for your team, for your business, for your work. So previously on Strategy Stream, we've laid the foundation in terms of kind of clarifying the key components, the fundamental elements of a solid marketing strategy, and not just digital marketing, although Grow the Dream, myself, our team, we focus on digital. I'm a geek by nature. I'm not wearing glasses today, but I often do, and it's part of who I am. So the beautiful thing is that while I developed a real interest in marketing through some of my early work experience in radio and retail and other businesses, my background as a geek collided with marketing and has continued to become more relevant as marketing is increasingly about technology. So we've laid some foundation here. And again, it applies to marketing across the board. In fact, we've had people go through this process who were in the business of marketing, a marketing agency, for example. And the leader told me at one point, he says, nobody teaches you this stuff. We didn't learn this. He had a degree in marketing, and they'd been doing marketing agency work for years. He said, and he dragged his team to our course that we were taking him through at the time. And he said, you just don't get this material anywhere. And of course, I didn't go to school for marketing. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a geek. I have a real desire to figure things out and then teach people how they work. So that's why we're here. And we did lay some foundation previously. So just to kind of catch you up and reorient us today, there are, as I see it, 3 fundamental keys to solid marketing strategy. And those keys we think of as the legs of a 3-legged stool. So leg number 1 is your bullseye. And if you've been around marketing people in the past, or if you've worked on this kind of stuff before, you think about this as your target market. But we really zeroed in on the idea that we're not talking about your target market. We're not talking about a target. We're talking about the bullseye on the target. And again, it makes some people nervous to kind of narrow down your description of who it is that you're looking to attract into your business or into your organization. But when you narrow it down, you become far more effective at reaching those people. And then if you hit people that are a little outside the bullseye, you're still okay with that because they're still on your target. So we've spent a good amount of time talking about your bullseye already. Today, we're going to dive into leg number 2. And this is what we call your true product or service. And again, you have to have all 3 legs of this stool for it to stand up. So there's no one thing here that is more important than the other. If you work on one and neglect the other 2, you can expect that what you do will be less effective. So again, we're trying to kind of go back and revisit this strategic foundation. And if it's your first time to walk through this process, I'll be excited to guide you through it today. And the third leg, just so that we're, again, teeing this up and fully mentioning these items, is your message. It's what do you use to connect the true product or service that you sell, which we'll be talking about today, and the bullseye. What do you connect those 2 things? Well, that's messaging, and not just the contents of your ads or your emails or your blog posts or whatever, but an actual messaging strategy and an overarching message, which we'll dive into soon. So just to get us oriented, I think we've talked already about leg number 1. If you missed that, I do want to encourage you. There is material available on our website. And we are going to increasingly make more resources available there today. So you won't find a lot of material there. You'll find some information about this strategy stream and the fact that it happens every week. And you can visit us on our website at growthedream.com/strategy stream. And we'll try to get that link up there for you. And you can also sign up for reminders there. There's no registration, as you already can tell, no registration required for this event. We're doing it every week, same time, so just join us on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be delighted to have you here. But if you want a reminder email, we'll happily send you one of those, so you can sign up to get a reminder. But no registration. We're not looking to market to you particularly through this event. In fact, we're here to give back to this amazing community of entrepreneurs and business owners that we've been privileged to serve for 22 years now. And with everything happening in 2020, there's so many businesses struggling, so many people just overwhelmed. We wanted to give this process away and give you a chance to walk through it with us, even if you've done it before, as a way to help you move forward strategically and powerfully out of whatever situation you find yourself in today. So today, leg number 2, your true product or service. So when we talk about marketing, we often use an archery analogy and hence the target. So if your bullseye, the people your business serves best, if they're on one end of this archery field, as a target, if you will, we'll use this hand as the target, and you're over here on the other end, and we're articulating your true product or service, we want to think about that as the archer with the bow, right? So the people you're going to serve, that you serve best, the ones that are your ideal customers, they're over here on this side of your of your field, and you're over here as the archer with the bow. It's really about your identity. And when we go through this process, which we often do face to face or virtually, and we've done both going into 2020, we've done virtual in 2020 since the pandemic, so we're not doing this in person right now. But when we do this, we'll often ask a business owner, an entrepreneur, a marketing leader, we really try to have a founder or CEO, president, owner in the room when we do this, because when we talk about the identity of the business, I'll let you in on a little secret. It's pretty impossible to separate the identity of a business from the identity of its owner, of its founder, of its chief executive leader. And often founder or owner is even more important, because even as businesses change hands, maybe because of being passed on from one generation to the other, there's a lot of the DNA of that original founder that kind of carries forward. So when we talk about the identity of the business, we often are talking about you if you are the founder or the owner of the business. We're talking about you partly because the way you do what you do, the way you live, the way you think, the way you operate is going to be carried forward into the organization. And it is often unconscious. You might even really try to do things differently in an organization than the way you would do them personally, but your DNA carries into it. So a lot of times we're really talking about you. But in order to sort of frame this so that we can work with it strategically, we're going to talk about it as the business, and we're going to try to shape the conceptualization we have of this in terms of the business. But keep in mind, as I'm asking these questions, I'm talking about you. And if you are maybe someone doing marketing strategy for an organization that you don't own or lead, then you may want to think about that owner, founder, top leader person at some level, and keep that in your mind as we move through this exercise. So if you don't already have one out, grab something to write with, or if you're taking notes on your computer, that works great. I'm going to walk you through, much like we've done on the previous sessions of Strategy Stream, I'm going to walk you through some material, and we're going to look at it together. And I'm going to ask you to think about this content today in terms of your business. So when I teach this in seminars and in presentations, and when we do this in person, I like to ask this question, and I'm going to throw it at you today. And I will warn you that we probably could update some of this for 2020, but we're just going through that process right now. So I think you'll get some sense of this. This is pre-2020. So when we talk about this today, I'm actually talking about the business that we're going to reference here in their pre-2020 state. Okay, so please keep that in mind as I ask the question that I'm going to ask you. Okay, so for this question, I'm going to talk about Starbucks. And again, I'm going to talk about Starbucks in terms of their pre-2020 existence. And I talk about Starbucks in part because I'm a fan. I have been a user of their product for many, many years, as I'm sure you have too. And I realize not everyone is, in fact, addicted to caffeine like I am, but I do have a real love for what I call legal addictive stimulants and even some prescription stimulants. So that's part of my DNA too. So with this question, which I'm going to bring up on screen for us here, we're talking about Starbucks. All right, so. This is an older slide. You can see it has our old logo on it, Epiphany Marketing. But Starbucks roasts coffee beans that they purchase from growers all over the world. They then sell those beans primarily by making drinks out of them in their local retail stores. Now, you can still do this in a Starbucks store today. You can buy drinks, and often they've adapted now. I've been to some Starbucks lately, and you can pick up a drink, you do the mobile order or whatever. You don't have to spend any time in the store. You leave your mask on. But again, pre-pandemic, pre-COVID-19, so which is a clue here. But Starbucks roast beans. They buy them from growers all over the world. They make drinks out of them, and they sell them in their retail stores. Now, we all know Starbucks also sells beans in retail establishments, grocery stores, and other places. And the Starbucks brand extends far beyond this. But the core business, the thing that makes Starbucks who they are, what business are they really in? Okay, so as I ask this question of you right now, I'm going to give you 4 choices. Is it coffee? Is it beverages? And keep in mind, they do sell beverages now that don't have any coffee in them at all, no beans in them at all. And of course, they sell some other products, but the bulk of their business, is it coffee? Is it beverages? Is it, in fact, legal addictive stimulants? Or is it entertainment? I'll give you a moment to think about that. If you're with us live on the strategy stream, you're welcome to type comments in. But is it coffee, beverages, legal addictive stimulants, or entertainment? Now, I will comment on this for just a moment. We're going somewhere, obviously, with this question. And I'm going to ask you the same question. What business are you in? Now, if you think about how you're going to answer this question first as a Starbucks executive, let's just pretend for the moment that you've been given the reins of Starbucks. You're in charge of corporate strategy, marketing strategy, business strategy. How do you think about your business if you run Starbucks? Do you sell coffee? Is that your identity? Is that your true product? Are people really buying coffee from you? Are they really buying beverages? Is it legal addictive stimulants? Is that what you really sell? And by the way, kudos to you if you say legal addictive stimulants. It's always great if you can have an addictive component to the product that you sell. I mean, hey, good for you. More power to you, right? Or is it entertainment? Now, when I say entertainment, people, look at me cross-eyed sometimes. And so you may answer this in a slightly different way. A lot of times people will say, well, they sell the experience, right? They sell the Starbucks experience. And again, pre-COVID-19, I would say that there's probably not a wrong answer here. I mean, Starbucks is clearly in the coffee business. They are clearly in the beverages business. They're clearly in the stimulants business, addictive, and they're clearly in the entertainment business. But while none of these answers is necessarily a wrong answer, there is one answer that's the most strategic answer. It's the most useful from a strategy standpoint. And that's where we're going with this, right? We want you to answer this question for your business as well, but to answer it in the most strategic way possible. Now, why would I say that one of these answers is more strategic? Well, if you take number one, our first option here, and you say, well, Starbucks is in the coffee business. There is literally no business that could be more accurately described as as selling a commodity than if you answer this question at the number one level. It's the most basic level in the sense that, yeah, there's coffee in nearly everything they sell, but coffee is literally a commodity. It's traded on the commodities exchanges. So if you answer with a level one kind of an answer, which is the widget that you sell, right? Or even the core of the widgets that you sell. Whether your widget is a product or a service doesn't really matter. But oftentimes when we ask people this question, what business are you in? They'll say, oh, I'm in the coffee business. They will answer that question in terms of the commodity, the most fundamental, basic, elemental level. But if you are in the coffee business and you're Starbucks, then let's think for a moment about how that affects pricing. Because coffee is literally available everywhere. I mean, if you go down the street of any suburban town, any big city, you'll find not only a Starbucks on many of those corners, but you'll also find dozens of other places to buy coffee and other ways to purchase coffee for every one Starbucks location. There are grocery stores, there are convenience stores, there are drive-thrus from fast food joints. There are even organizations that have really decided we're going to go head-to-head with Starbucks in their actual marketing strategy and say, well, America runs on Dunkin', right? And in the Northeast, as it turns out, if you live in Boston especially, you'll find people, they get Dunkin' every day instead of Starbucks. I mean, often. There's still a lot of Starbucks in that city, but I found out, from doing work in Boston that, man, that's Dunkin' Donuts town, with good reason, of course. But my point is, if you are thinking strategically, you're not going to position your business in terms of the most commoditized version of your product or service, because that means that you're going to have to compete against all the other ways that people can purchase that commodity. Starbucks came to market clearly saying, we're going to charge a heck of a lot more for our product than anywhere else that you can buy the commodity that we sell. So I would argue that with that in mind, Starbucks' most strategic answer is not the level one answer. It's not the commodity. And in fact, it's not the slightly more sophisticated version of the commodity, the beverages business. I mean, you might say, well, in your business, yeah, we started with a core product offering or a service offering, and then we expanded to offer some other things that are related. And that's, they may or may not even have that commodity piece in there, but it's a little more accurate picture of what our business sells on a day-to-day basis. That's your level 2 answer, right? And you might say beverages if you were asked this as someone in charge of strategy at Starbucks. So, and you might do the same thing for your business. Again, is there a level 1 answer? Is there a level 2 answer? Level 2 is also not much more strategic. It might be a little better, might be a little more accurate. If you go to market with a pitch that advertises that you have not just coffee, but other beverages too, you might attract people that don't particularly love coffee, So there's an advantage that you can make that argument as a business strategist for your business. You can make the argument that we should answer at a level 2 instead of a level 1, and you'd probably be more effective, potentially, depending on your market and who you're serving and all that sort of good stuff, right? But there's a temptation. My point is there's a temptation to go, oh, well, okay, we'll answer at level 2 instead of level 1, and that'll be better. Level 3 I throw it in a lot of times for amusement's sake, legal addictive stimulants. But if you were in a room pitching your business to investors and you really wanted them, in the mind of Howard Schultz, was very different from anything you would find in the U.S. He thought of it as what became later known as the third place, right? It's not home. It's not work. It's a third place. And we've had third places throughout our history, maybe the corner bar or tavern. For some people involved in a religious community, maybe it's that church or mosque or temple or wherever you go to be around like-minded people. Maybe a third place. The beauty of the cafe in Italy is that it was often open early in the morning, often open late at night. You could go anytime. Nobody questioned why you were there, and certainly you bought coffee. And you could even argue that those places that Howard Schultz was thinking of shaped Western civilization. There's a real argument to be made there. But why am I spending all that time on it? Well, I'll tell you, because Howard Schultz took that idea, brought it to the Pacific Northwest, set up a couple of locations. He named them Il Giornale, which was an Italian phrase that was the name of a newspaper in Italy. And he was really trying to replicate those Italian cafes. And once he got to a certain point of success with those and the idea started to catch on, he went to the Starbucks people and bought them. And then he changed the name of his locations to Starbucks, and the rest, as they say, is history. But he had left. He was out of the business, and in 2008, they found themselves really unfocused. They found themselves struggling. There was this global financial crisis. People's spending, their net spendable income shrunk. What do you do? So Starbucks brought Howard Schultz back in, and he developed a new strategy, and that's the point of this book, Onward. And I have a pet peeve about that time. One of the things they did is they drastically reduced the number of things you could buy at a Starbucks location. I don't know if you remember pre-2008, they had grown into this. I mean, there was retail space that had products on it, not the things you see today, still like coffee mugs or maybe a French press, a way to make coffee, or some breath mints or gum or a bottle of water or a little case full of food. But they had a wide variety of products. I mean, they were selling DVDs and CDs and music and all sorts of stuff. So he drastically pared back the number of things that they offered. And in part because, hey, we just have to, streamline our supply chain and clarify our offering. But in the process, he eliminated my favorite syrup. So I'm still, to use a terrible pun, I'm still a little bitter about 2008 because the almond syrup went away. And they kept some other syrups that, frankly, just don't go well with coffee, in my view. So if you Google Starbucks almond syrup right now, you'll probably still find the blog post that I wrote in 2008 when this happened. So in any case, I bring this up today because we're in that moment now. We have to think differently about our strategy moving forward. We have to be a little bit like Howard Schultz was when he came back in and took the helm of Starbucks in 2008. And we have to say, based on current situations, which we need to very circumspectly identify, and we talked about previously what's changed, especially if you did your homework assignment and you were here with us on a previous strategy stream, you hopefully spoke to some customers. Your ideal customers, those people in your bullseye. You had some conversations. Maybe you traded emails. Hopefully you had maybe a Zoom call or a phone call where you asked them what's changed in your world, what's keeping you up at night. In other words, if you've kind of taken this circumspect approach to kind of identify what's different right now, the most important differences are not even the differences in our business. The most important differences are what's changed about our buyer. What's changed about those people's lives who occupy the bullseye of our target market? What's different for them? What's different about their wants? We said it before, people don't buy what they need, they buy what they want. So what's happening with them emotionally? What are their new goals and dreams and aspirations? Some people, a lot of people, are just saying, I just want to survive right now. I don't have any dreams at the moment. I've set aside for now at least, I'm not chasing a dream as much as I'm just trying to make it. So if you have some sense of what's going on with your target market, then you have a great frame of reference. And of course, yes, you still need to know about your own business, your employees, your available resources, your supply chain. Some of the businesses that have done really well in 2020. One category, RV dealers. I can speak. New and used RVs have flown off of lots. If you're a dealer of new RVs, you may have had such a successful 2020 that you have a new problem, which is the global supply chain isn't keeping up with demand. And you can't put new RVs on your lot to sell, even though you've got customers, buyers, right? So yeah, you definitely have to be aware of all of the big picture. But arguably the most important thing that you need to know is about your buyers. Because let's think about the RV dealer for a moment. If you're keeping your thumb on the pulse of those people that you're selling to, and that's probably changed. There's some people that might not have ever bought an RV, but in 2020 they woke up one day and they went, you know what, I need I need an RV. I got to go on vacation. I'm not getting on a plane. I don't trust the recycled air or the recirculated air, or I don't want to stay in hotels. I don't want to be around people. We can't go to concerts. There are events we can't do, but I can pack my little clan up and we can get ourselves in a little mobile dwelling and hit the road, go see sights, right? So that RV dealer has new people in their bullseye, but that's a risk, because as soon as that circumstances change that drove that new category of buyer to show up, as soon as those drivers change, that buyer might disappear. Now, sure, some of those people are hooked and they'll stick around. They've become part of hashtag van life. They're converted, but there are a lot of people that are buyers right now that maybe in a few months, when the global supply chain opens up more and you've got new inventory, maybe those people are gone. Or maybe they're less motivated. Or maybe they found something else to spend their money on, right? So in other words, of all the business factors, we have to keep our thumb on the pulse. We have to keep a real true sense of what's going on in the minds of our bullseye, of our target market. So when you answer the question, what business are you in? I want you to think about a pre-2020 Starbucks and put your hat on. Why would I say that Starbucks is arguably in the entertainment business? Well, let's think about this in terms of, again, how you really imagine your competition. So when we're talking about, Starbucks, for example, and again, I'm just using this as a model for you to think about how you answer this question for your own business. If you think about your true product or service, the thing that people are really buying from you, another way to think about it is when someone makes a purchase from you, what do they think they're buying from you, right? So I became a Starbucks consumer many years ago, and even in pre-Starbucks days. So I'm in Florida, and Starbucks didn't really show up in a meaningful way here until a little after 2000. I want to say maybe 2001. They started to really make make a showing. We had a regional coffee chain here that was known as Barney's Coffee and Tea. And Barney's had a lot of mall stores, and they also had really great coffee beans, and I was a real fan of Barney's. And I had become a consumer of this kind of environment for a while. But in 2001, one of the things that really happened that made this unique for me was that I went full-time into this business. And at that time, we were known as Epiphany Marketing, which the logo is kind of visible there in this slide. But it was a one-man show. I was a consultant. I worked with businesses on strategy, and I was on the road a fair amount. And what I needed often was a place to have internet access. And at that time, some Starbucks locations had internet access. It was not free. In fact, famously, Howard Schultz at one point said, "We will never have free Wi-Fi at Starbucks." So even great strategists, are going to have to revise their ideas from time to time. So I'm not going to call him wrong. It was probably the right move at that time. But at that time, if I wanted Wi-Fi or internet access, I couldn't rely on Starbucks. I would often have to find a Kinko's location, and now we since they were bought out by FedEx, it's the FedEx office location. But I was on the road enough that I often needed a place to if I could get internet access, I really wanted that. Some Starbucks would offer that. But mostly, I needed a place to camp for a while because I might be in between sales appointments. And I was working with I had a client at that time that sold a technology product, and there would often be very long demo meetings with people. And in between those meetings, you wouldn't schedule them back to back because they might go for 45 minutes or they might go for 3 hours. So I often found myself with big gaps in the day, not that I had nothing to do, but that I needed a place to crash and work. And if it's during the day and I'm only in town for the day, I'm not going to have a hotel space. You get the idea, right? So I would need a place to work, and Starbucks became that for me. And again, that third place, it was a spot for me to crash. Obviously, I could meet up with clients or people at Starbucks. It was great. I wasn't just, I would, by the way, I buy coffee if I go to Starbucks. I buy something because I believe in not mooching. But nobody ever challenged my presence at a Starbucks and said, "Hey, did you buy something?" In other words, part of what they sold, it wasn't just the coffee. It wasn't just the beverages. They created a package. And they sold the package. And so as you think about your business and how you frame the answer to the question, what is it you're really selling? What are people really buying? I want to ask you the Starbucks question in a slightly different form. What could you do that would allow you to take your commodity, like, maybe you face a lot of price competition. There are other people selling, maybe you entered the market and you were the first house painter in the area, but then other people saw, wow, hey, there's a great business to be had, so we're going to all paint houses, and the price came down, right? It became a commodity. Okay, Starbucks is not just selling the commodity, they have their special roast, right? They roast it differently. So there's a quality argument. We buy better beans, we have a better roasting process. Our coffee is better. But let's be real. I can go to, a convenience store and pay 79 cents for a cup of coffee, and I can get my legal addictive stimulant, and it tastes like coffee. Is it as good? No. And sure, my tastes have been, they've shifted over the years as a result of buying higher quality beans. But if I just need my fix and I need a cup of coffee, I can get it for a lot. I can get it for a fraction. I mean, let's go back to 2001. I mean, if an advanced Starbucks beverage cost $3.50 or $4 at the time, I could pay 79 cents. We're talking about a severe multiple here, right? Do I want to pay 4 or 5 times the cost for a thing? Is it that much better? Is the quality really that much better? And I would argue, no, it's really not that much better. Starbucks figured out what their target market wanted to purchase. They bundled it all up into a thing, and they sold it as a product. People wanted to not smell like a convenience store after they acquired their fix, right? I don't know what that smell is. If you wander into I'm not picking on 7-Eleven, but any convenience store, you wander into a convenience store, you buy the cup of coffee, you've spent, if there's not a line, you spent 45 seconds, maybe 2 minutes in the store, and you still have that lingering smell on you for a long time, for the rest of the day sometimes. So I'd rather not smell like that. I'm willing to pay more to buy a cup of coffee, even if the quality difference isn't really there, so that, if you walk into a Starbucks location, it's got the aroma. They don't roast the beans there, but you might think they did because it just smells so good. They do grind them. And I love that when they're espresso machines, periodically they have to, run a new grind, and the smell erupts in the place, right? They also have the music. There's nice ambiance. They've got comfortable seating. If you need a desk, a power outlet to recharge your phone or computer or whatever, they've got those. Different Starbucks in different markets have different arrangements. And of course, local Starbucks here, I don't know about elsewhere, but local Starbucks here have remodeled essentially. They've really shifted. Florida's opening up, but the Starbucks locations are still, they're different now. They've swapped out the furniture and the chairs and the stuff, and it's not the same. But pre-2020, if you think about that, Starbucks was like, come, sit, we don't care, linger. And in fact, they did provide free Wi-Fi. You can get free Wi-Fi. So my point is, what is it that your buyers really want? What are they willing to pay more for? And you may have been through some version of this exercise when you think about your pricing strategy. Rather than just sell the commodity, can you make the case that your business is more reliable? When people hire your company to perform a service, let's say, you show up on time. Maybe you could argue that you answer the phone when other people don't answer the phone. You have a warranty for your product, right? So sometimes it's not even just the quality of the actual widget, the product or the service. Sometimes it's the stuff that people really want. So like if they're buying coffee, people don't, peace of mind isn't really something that normally enters into the equation when people are buying a cup of coffee. They want it to be reliably good. They want it to be hot most of the time, unless you're buying one of the cold ones. You know what I mean? There are expectations around the consistency of the product. Starbucks had nailed all of that stuff and has nailed it all for many years. But so has McDonald's, so has Dunkin' Donuts, right? So what is it that you can get at a Starbucks that you can't get from these other places? And my question goes to you in the same way. What are your buyers willing to trade more for? And again, revisiting the Starbucks question, how can you take your commodity, package it with some other things that are really highly valuable to your buyer, and bundle that together and sell it for a higher price? And how can you not only do that once, but do it in a way that causes people to come back? For Starbucks, people go back. Again, pre-2020, they go back several times a day. I need my morning fix. I need my afternoon fix. I need my evening fix. Or if they're a consultant or a freelancer or somebody that meets people at Starbucks, they might be there all day. I have worked 8-hour and longer days at Starbucks, and I keep buying more stuff, because, again, right thing to do. But my point is, Starbucks found a bunch of stuff that at the time I didn't even know that I wanted. But once I found out I could get it, I was like, yeah, and I'm willing to pay more for the commodity that they sell so that I can have all the other stuff. What about you? What is it about your business that people might be willing to trade more for that would cause them to come back? And that is the thing that I refer to when I say, what is the true product or service in your business? What is it you're really selling? And perhaps a better way to think of it is, what are your buyers really buying? Because at the end of the day, when they're trading money for your product or service, that's what counts, is what they think they're getting. And yes, we're going to need to use that information as we shape your messaging strategy. We're going to need to use that information as we shape your business strategy moving forward from 2020. So you understand, this becomes a really important key factor. And when I say, what is your true product or service, that's what I mean. What is it? And it's okay if this takes some time for you to answer. Because coming out of 2020, if you've done the work and you've reconnected as closely as you can with the buyers that are in your bullseye of your target market, and you have some sense of what's going on in their world, the way that you think about what people are really buying from you may need to shift right now, and that is okay. In fact, it's expected. If we go back to our RV dealer analogy, they're still selling vehicles that either do or don't have an engine in them, but that you can stay in without having to go to a hotel. You can park it almost anywhere, or you can inexpensively park it at a campsite in a state park or national park or somewhere else. You know what I mean? Maybe you can be completely off grid. The widget hasn't changed. Features, those haven't changed. Functions haven't changed. But in 2020, a lot of the people buying an RV weren't buying a new lifestyle. They were buying a vacation. They were buying a new hobby, and in many cases, a temporary hobby. And I would argue that once we get on the other side of this pandemic, maybe in a year or two, where the real impact of this thing has hopefully by then slowed down, and we have concerts and conferences and all that other stuff again that we associate with travel, I would argue that we'll probably have a glut of used RVs on the market, and the prices will drop. And I could be wrong about that, but that's just my prediction. And why? Because people are not buying the true product or service that they were prior to 2020 when they purchase an RV. So in your business, what's different about that? We've talked to a lot of businesses that are doing really well in 2020 that are not just selling RVs, right? People that make home a more comfortable, enjoyable place to be. Pest control businesses have done really well, especially in Florida, but outside of Florida as well, because people are home more. They're working from home, like in record numbers, and they're seeing the bugs. They're buying new kitchen cabinets. They're remodeling the kitchen. They're buying new furniture. I had a meeting with a client yesterday, furniture retailer. Yes, people are buying furniture like crazy because they're using it more. They're at home more. So a lot of businesses have done really well in 2020. And maybe the thing that they're buying, the true product that they're purchasing, hasn't changed at all, right? If you're a furniture retailer and people are buying furniture from you, people are buying a certain amount of comfort. They're buying a certain amount of functionality. That hasn't changed. They need it more. So the reason why they're interested in buying the true product or service might have shifted, but it's really the same true product. Maybe there's a component to it. If you're selling super high end furniture, the true product might have been some kind of status that doesn't factor in quite as much because they don't have guests coming over in 2020 because of the pandemic or whatever. So, you could argue, but my point is that your true product or service may shift dramatically as a result of the pandemic, and it may shift very little or not at all. But either way, think about this through the lens of your buyer in 2020, and then certainly as we move through, we're in the fourth quarter now of 2020. The election will soon be behind us, thank God. And when we get on the other side of the election, we get into 2021. I don't know how to predict when better treatments and vaccines and other stuff might be available. I have no idea how to predict the disease, but I still suspect that we're going to be probably third quarter of 2021 before some sense of normalcy returns, and probably longer than that before we don't feel the effects of this anymore. But a lot of things could change between now and then. So as you think about moving forward for your business, write this down. What do you think people would have said prior to the pandemic that they were really purchasing from you? Think about it, not at the commodity level, not at the slightly more advanced commodity level, not at that third level, like the legal addictive stimulants level, where you might say, well, yeah, there's this feature about our product or service that makes that people go crazy over it, right? Think about the true product or service in terms of that bigger picture bundle. If you're in a service business, as we said before, maybe people are buying reliability. Maybe they're willing to pay for a little higher touch level of service. I can tell you one of the things that I've had a hard time learning this lesson over the years. I don't know at the end of the day if I'm great at running a service business, honestly. But in the service business, where we're providing services over and over to people, one of the things that I didn't price in early on was a lot of communication. And you know what? Communicating with people it takes time. It's highly valuable. I knew that, but I just didn't budget the cost of doing a lot of that communication into how we priced our services. And over the years, I have found that people will pay a lot more for somebody who communicates in a timely fashion than they will for someone that they can't get a hold of. And while I know this to be true, I still am not sure that I'm the greatest at implementing it. But at the end of the day, I can tell you that if we were to reevaluate our true product, a lot of times what people are purchasing from us has less and less to do with the day-to-day of the widgets, the stuff, and it has more to do with how they understand the stuff and how much time they get from us. And I'll tell you, that's really valuable knowledge from a strategic standpoint. And it's something that as I call it, you go around the mountain, and there's some business lessons I've had to learn over and over and over again. This is one of them. And so maybe you can identify with that. I hope not, but maybe you can identify with having a business lesson that just keeps coming back around and you go, yeah, I knew that. Yeah. 2020 is one of those moments where you can sit back and you can look at things and you can go, okay, maybe there are some lessons we learned along the way. We've either forgotten or we never really implemented them. But this is a moment where you can think about adding a lot of value to the stuff you sell. If we're using the Starbucks analogy, you can add a lot to the coffee. You can add a comfortable space. Like if you're just selling coffee, you don't need a big retail space, right? And some of the Starbucks where that's all it is people just getting in and out. They are tiny, in certain markets, especially like metropolitan markets. But if you're packaging a place to sit, a place to have meetings, a place to work, some place to just escape your office so that you can get your work done without people interrupting you all the time, then you're going to build a different location. You're going to scout a different location. You're going to build it out differently. In other words, your whole business is impacted by how you answer this question, the competitive side of it. And I'm going to wrap this thought up on the entertainment bit, and then we'll close it down for today. But if you think about your business, your true product or service in terms of what the buyer really wants and how you can bundle it together and sell it to them, you may find that you're competing for a different dollar in someone's mind, the buyer's mind, than if you were selling just a commodity. In the Starbucks analogy, I might ask you this question: does Starbucks compete with 7-Eleven? And if you say, well, yeah, our principal product is coffee, well, then definitely, right? But of course, Starbucks doesn't compete with 7-Eleven. They don't sell gas and they don't sell all the, convenience store items. But if you're just defining it by coffee, well, then sure, that 7-Eleven becomes a competitor, and a really inexpensive one, right? If you define your product or service, on the other hand, as entertainment, which is the terminology that I like to use when I talk about Starbucks, this might give you some insight into why I choose that rather than the experience. Much has been made over the years about the Starbucks experience. We talked about it already. The place, the atmosphere, the music, the barista who knows your name, sometimes your order before you even place the order. That seems to be happening less, but it used to happen in Starbucks where they'd see you walk in, they'd start making, like for me, they used to make the triple grande cappuccino, almond cappuccino, before 2008. And so they knew And it was great. And some of those people, I see them to this day, and they're not even baristas anymore, but we have fond memories, right? Those people mattered. In other words, Starbucks bundled this whole thing together and they sold it. So that's been often referred to as the experience, but I like to call it an entertainment. I use the entertainment terminology because I could ask you this question: does Starbucks compete with movie theaters? And I would say yes. Why? Well, no. Do they serve? Do they show movies? No. But if I'm thinking about spending an evening with someone that I want to talk to or spend time with, maybe it's a date, maybe it's a night out, whatever. Sure, we could go sit in a movie theater and spend X dollars, or we could sit at a Starbucks and have a much more meaningful interaction. And the money that I spend on that time is entertainment money, right? So, but even if you're thinking about, well, the business person isn't spending money out of their entertainment budget when they sit at Starbucks and work during the day, that's true, but they could rent office space. They could get a co-working spot. They could get a hot desk at a Regis. I mean, there's lots of ways to get a spot to work. I mean, to sit at home for that matter. Why would you go sit at Starbucks instead? Because it's more enjoyable. There's something about it that you find enjoyable. Not everybody does, but the people in the bullseye do. Right? So in that sense, it is an entertainment spend, even though, because they have the option about where to spend that work budget, right? They might spend it on something that they enjoy less, or they could spend it on something they enjoy more. So in your business, again, people they don't buy what they need. They buy what they want. Starbucks, I need caffeine. I need coffee, but I want all these other things, and I'm willing to pay quite a bit more for them than what I would have to spend to get what I need. And I'm willing to do that multiple times a day sometimes because they figured me out and they're selling me what I really want. And I want you, as your homework assignment, so to speak, I want you to think about your business. And we've spent a lot of time. I really have endeavored to give you time to think and think this through and really kind of drill down on some of this stuff as we've gone through this time today. And I did that on purpose because I want you to truly have the sense of how important this is, and I want you to spend some time on it. So when you think about what you're really selling, I want you to think about these questions that we've asked today. How can you redefine that commodity that you might normally use if you're at a networking meeting and somebody says, well, what do you do? Oh, I sell, whatever it is. This is not the time for that answer. This is the time for the most strategic possible answer you can come up with. So I want you to think about what business you're really in. And I'm going to tell a 30-second story, and we're going to close this down for today. And I think you'll like this story. Before I do, just a quick reminder, visit growthedream.com/strategystream. StrategyStream is all one word. It's all lowercase. Visit that location on our website if you want to connect with us. If you want to shoot us a note, you have a question, a comment, a piece of feedback. If you have something specific you want us to address on a future one, shoot us an email, hello@growthedream.com. This last story may be the most valuable thing I do all day. And I want to give credit to Guy Kawasaki. He included this in a really fantastic book that was published in the 90s called How to Drive Your Competition Crazy. And I'll just directly quote from the book because I normally would tell it a little bit longer version, but think about what your buyer is really buying and how you can deliver it to them, okay? From the 1830s to the 1890s, ice harvesting, which involved cutting up frozen ponds and selling the ice, was a huge industry in New England. In 1886, the biggest ice harvest that ever occurred amounted to over 25 million tons of ice. Think about that. You got people, they're going out cutting up ponds. I said I would read it, but they're going up cutting up ponds, ice, and then they got to deliver it because it melts. You got to move it quickly, and so think about all the logistics, the operational side of that business, right? They're selling ice. They're literally selling ice. By the 1920s, though, almost all the ice harvesting companies were out of business. Why? Ice harvesting had been made obsolete by ice-making plants that could operate in any part of the country during every season. Refrigeration, very cold refrigeration had been invented and made feasible at scale. Later, these ice-making plants were themselves made obsolete by the advent of refrigerators in people's homes. Now, can you imagine a company that really knew that what people were buying wasn't the cut up pond material that you delivered to their home or their place of business. What they were buying was cold. Convenient cold. Because, I mean, they could go cut up ponds themselves, right? They wanted someone to make it convenient for them. What is it that your buyers are really buying? How you answer that question and your ability to stay connected to that in the days ahead as we continue to see more rapid change, that in and of itself may be your key to not just surviving 2020 and COVID-19 and all the related stuff, but it may be the key to your thriving. What is it people really want when they buy from you, and how can you make sure you continue to deliver that to them? Maybe you can improve your ability to continue to deliver it to them in more meaningful and valuable ways. And that, my friends, is a huge piece of strategy. I hope you've enjoyed today. We look forward to seeing you next week. We're going to do this every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and I'm excited to have you here. Shoot us an email, hello@growthedream.com, if you have questions, comments, any kind of feedback, and we'll look forward to hearing from you there. And if you'd like a reminder email so you don't miss next week's strategy stream, hit our website. The link is in the chat here, growthedream.com/strategy stream. And if you'd like, just sign up for an email. We'll shoot you an email about an hour or so before we start so that you have a reminder. And I'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks again for being here today. And on behalf of my team, we're grateful for you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.